How'd you learn you got the job?
You know, I can't remember if it was which preceded which, but I believe I received a phone call from the President of the United States asking me to be the acting Attorney General.
A moment ago, you said you learned by tweet. Did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay, so you learned first by a phone call from the President.
I believe so, but they were very close in time. And so I actually, as I sit here right now, I can't remember which preceded which.
Matt Whitaker there before the House Judiciary Committee on Friday, appearing confused about how he learned how he got the job as acting Attorney General. The Washington Post declared this the most inexplicable moment of his testimony. And joining me now, the woman asking the tough questions, freshman Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, Democrat from Pennsylvania, member of the Financial Services and Judiciary Committees. Just so you know, ma'am, as I welcome you to the broadcast, when he said that you had misunderstood what he'd said about his tweet, I was like, no, that's what you said. So you didn't misunderstand at all anything. This whole tenor of this conversation, this Q&A back and forth with him. First of all, did you believe him when he said he couldn't remember?
Well, it made no sense to me. He talked about it being the honor of his lifetime, which we could imagine. If you're appointed acting Attorney General, it's quite an honor.
That's huge.
So it was inexplicable to me that he didn't know whether it was by tweet. Originally, he said by tweet. I said perhaps I'm confused when he said by a phone call, but then you listen to him, he was confused. He was uncertain. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I have the job that is an honor of a lifetime. I know exactly how and when I got it. If I had a call from the President or a tweet from the President, I'd probably remember it very, very vividly.
So the tenor of this entire exchange with him in front of Congress there, were you surprised by the tenor, by his maneuverings here, his inability to remember or refusing to answer certain questions, pivoting? I mean, is this what you expected?
No, it certainly wasn't. I expected forthright answers to honest questions. That's our job. We have an oversight job to do, and we were there to find out, A, how did he get the job, and B, what did he do while he was in this job? So that little moment that you just showed was one of many moments where the acting Attorney General just avoided, delayed, stonewalled, or was unclear himself.
So with the rather lengthy list of congressional investigations into the president's actions, can you tell me what's coming up next for the Judiciary Committee on which you sit?
Well, the good news is that we have a robust agenda, both substantively and in oversight. This week, we're going to be looking at Homeland Security and the issue of immigration and separation of families at the border, that inhumane policy that this administration under Jeff Sessions and Acting Attorney General Whitaker put in place, separating children from their parents at the border. We want to get clarity on that. How many children have taken place in that separation? How many have been reunited? I actually had the chance to speak to Acting Attorney General afterwards, after our hearing. I wanted to be sure to introduce myself. And I spoke with him about that policy. I didn't get clarity on whether or not we have ended the policy of family separation. And my suggestion to him was, on his way out the door, why doesn't he loudly and boldly end that policy?
May I ask you about that conversation, even beyond that, just the particulars? I mean, how did he react to you speaking with him? Was he gracious? Was he combative? Was he defensive? I'm just curious what your takeaway was.
I thought he was absolutely pleasant. I first spoke with one of the counsel, the woman that was sitting behind him throughout the testimony. She was gracious and pleasant. I asked her these questions, and I asked her to get back to me with the answers, more importantly, get back to the committee with the answers. And then when he stepped into the hallway, he too was gracious, and I think he was a little puzzled at my suggestion. But I said it could be a very important legacy to recognize the inhumanity of that policy, say that it is, declare it un-American. Although you heard he was unsure if he even knew about the memo as Chief of Staff. He was unsure if he even had seen or was aware of the memo that initiated this policy. So time after time, there were incredulous things that he testified to in the hallway. He couldn't have been more pleasant, and I hope he takes me up on my suggestion.
Yeah. This begs one more question before I move on to something you're passionate about, which is speaking out about gun violence, and that is, there's been a suggestion that Matt Whitaker's testimony was for the audience of one, and you know of whom I'm speaking there. Do you think that is possible?
I certainly hope not. He was sworn to testify before us, a congressional committee. So what he would be auditioning for in an audience of one. As he declared, he's out the door in 4 or 5 days now. So certainly not. We have a constitutional system of government, and he was there sworn under oath to speak to us and to speak the truth to Congress about his role.
All right, very quickly, because I don't want to miss this. I know that you've been very outspoken about gun violence, and last week, as you know, the House held its first hearing on gun violence since 2011. We saw in that hearing Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz squaring off against parents of the Parkland shooting victims. What do you hope comes out of this? What do you think the chances are of penetrating the gun lobby, getting anything passed and signed into law?
Well, that was a particularly low moment of grand disrespect. It was, again, maybe inexplicable to me. What I hope is that we will pass H.R. 8, which is the Universal Background Bill, and I have confidence we will. You saw the courage and important role that this committee, this chairman of our committee, chose gun violence as one of our initial hearings. We will pass that bill, and we will save lives. Because, Alex, you know the scope of this problem. In 2017, 40,000 people died in this country of gun violence. Another 80,000 were caught in the crossfire, literally wounded, caught in the crossfire. That is 300 people a day, every single day. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, 100 dead a day, 200 wounded a day. We have to wrap our heads and our arms around this problem. We have to show compassion to those who have lost so grievously, and we have to end gun violence. We have an obligation, and I think the opportunity to save lives. So I was delighted at the hearing, delighted that we finally are able to talk about this. Imagine in 8 years we have not had a single hearing on gun violence. This year ends that.
I'll tell you, big welcome to Congress, Congresswoman Dean. Thank you so much for speaking with me, and I'll very much look forward to seeing you again.